Welcome back to educator.com. For the next lesson, we're going to go over ratio. So a ratio is when you compare two things. You're making a comparison between two quantities. It's also same as division. So if you look here, there's three ways to express a ratio. There's three ways to write a ratio. If A is 1 and B is something else, you can say A to B. Okay, so you can write it out A to B. Now all of this, whether you write it like this, or like this, they're all read as A to B. But if you can write it like this, using a colon, or as a fraction, A to B. Okay, you're still comparing A and B. Now, for example, if I said, what is the ratio? You're comparing boys to girls. Now, because I said boys first, boys is going to be written as A, the first one, and then girls has to be the second one. Okay, so boys to girls. If I ask for the ratio of boys to girls, then I can't give you the number of girls to boys. Okay, so you can't do this. You have to write out the ratio in the order that was stated or was asked for. So boys to girls. So if I say there are 5 boys and there are 3 girls, then the ratio of boys to girls would be 5 to 3. You can also write it as 5 to 3 like that. Now if I ask you what is the ratio of girls to boys, then you would have to give me this number first. The number of girls to the number of boys. Okay, so you always have to write out the ratio in the order that it was asked for. So A to B, A colon B, and A over B as a fraction. Okay, and this is called ratio. Now a rate is a ratio. Okay, you're still comparing A to B, but you're given different rates. So, for example, if I say miles per hour, okay, miles per hour would be, so you have the number of miles and you have however many number of hours. You're making a ratio between the number of miles and the number of hours. So a rate would be a ratio, so same thing, A to B, but using different rates. If I say $5 for 5 candies, then that's a ratio. You're making a comparison between the amount over the number of candy. So if you make a comparison between two things, it's called a ratio. When those two things require or have some kind of unit, then it is called a rate. Okay? Now, a unit rate is a rate with a denominator of 1. And that means that if I say I traveled 2 miles in 2 hours, okay, here's my ratio, 2 miles every 2 hours. Okay, this is my ratio. A unit rate would mean to make this, the denominator, the bottom number, a 1. That means I need to change this to become 1 hour. Okay, that would be a unit rate. So that means I have to, in order to turn this 2 into a 1, I have to divide the 2, right? So I'm going to divide this by 2, which means I have to divide the top number by 2. And this would be 1 mile per hour. Because it's 1 hour, so 1 mile per hour would be the unit rate. This alone would just be a rate. But when you make the denominator a 1, a unit of 1, then this is a unit rate. So this here is a unit rate. because the denominator is 1. Okay? So here's an example, $10 per 20 pieces. So that's like the candy example. If it's $10 for every 20 pieces, okay, well, in order to give me a unit rate, I want to find out how much it is per piece. So one piece. So I'm turning this denominator into a 1. That means in order to turn this denominator into 1, I have to divide it by this number, divide it by itself. That means I have to divide this top number. Okay? Now, because this is money, I want to change it to a decimal. So I know that 10 divided by 20, or 10 divided by 20, is going to give me okay, 0.5. 0.5 in money is the same thing as 50 cents, right? If I add a 0 here, that becomes 50 cents. Not 5 cents, be careful. This is 50 cents. So the unit rate would be 50 cents per piece. Okay, and I couldn't put 1 in front of it if I want, but if I just say per piece, then I'm talking about one piece. So you can leave it like this, and this would be your unit rate. Now, when you're converting rates, so rate, remember, it's a ratio of two different rates, right? You have different units on the top and the bottom, okay, and that's a rate. To convert rates means you're going to go from whatever rates they give you, whatever units they give you, and you're changing it to something else, changing it to different rates. You're converting them. For example, if I have miles per hour, let's say I want miles per hour. Now I'm going to put miles on top, and I'm going to put, so 1 mile per hour. Okay, this is the rate that I'm starting off with. And I want to convert it to feet per minute. Okay, this is mile. MI is miles, and MIN is for minutes. So I'm going to convert this number here, this ratio, this rate, to this rate, this ratio. Okay, remember, rates are ratios. So I'm going to convert this to this. That means miles, I need to change to feet, and hours, I'm going to change to minutes. Now, miles and feet, they're both measurements of distance, right? Mile and feet, you're both measuring how the distance of something. Hour and minutes, they're both measuring time. So I can convert miles to feet and hours to minutes. Now, in order for you to be able to convert rates, this to this, you have to know the equivalent units. So how many feet equals a mile? Okay, well, 1 mile equals 5,280 feet. Okay, so this and this are the same. 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. And the same thing for hours and minutes. I know that 60 minutes equals 1 hour, right? So if it helps, you need to just put this, write this on the side. You're going to use this to help you convert rates. So first thing I do, I'm going to start here, and I'm going to end here. Okay, so I'm going to change all these into these. So I'm going to start from 1 mile, okay, to 1 hour. Now, I'm going to multiply it to different units because I can cross-cancel things out, right? Now, if I say that 5,280 feet is the same thing as 1 mile, if they equal each other, then I can say 5,280 feet over 1 mile is going to equal 1, right? Because this number and this are the same thing, right? We said they're equal. So this over this is equal to 1. Anything over itself is 1, right? So if I said, for example, 5 over 5, isn't that 1? Because it's the same number over itself. Same thing here. This equals this. So if I say 5,280 feet over 5,280 feet, isn't that equal to 1? And this does equal 5,280 feet. So if I write it like this, you have to understand that this is the same thing as 1. Now if I multiply this by 1, I'm not changing this. I can multiply this by 1 if I want, right? Because it doesn't change. So instead of multiplying it by 1, I want to multiply it by this. This is the same thing as 1. So I'm going to multiply this to multiply all this to this. Now, I want the miles to go away, right? Because the miles is going to have to change to feet. So I need the miles to go away. In order for me to cross cancel the miles, I have to have one on the top and one on the bottom. So this miles is going to go down here. On the top, it's going to go 5,280 feet. Oops. 280 feet. That way, this and this will cancel, right? Again, this whole thing is just equal to 1. So I can just multiply it to this if I want. It's not going to change my answer because I'm just multiplying it by 1. Same thing for hours. Well, I also know that since this 60 minutes is equal to 1 hour, if I put 60 minutes and I divide it by 1 hour, since this whole thing equals this whole thing, this is also equal to 1, isn't it? They equal each other. Whenever the top and the bottom equal each other, that always equals 1. So I want to multiply this whole thing to this whole thing because, again, this is equal to 1. And I want the hours to go away. That means if this is already in the bottom, then I need to write this on the top. So this is going to go 1 hour over 60 minutes. And I just flipped this. This went to the top and this went to the bottom. Because, again, if this is the same thing as this, then isn't this over this the same thing, right? So I'm writing it on the top and the bottom depending on where I have to cancel it. So if this is already in the bottom, then I need to cancel this, and that's going to go like that. And if I look on the top, what units am I left with? Feet, right? So for my answer, if I multiply this out, then I'm going to be left with feet, which is what I want, right? And on the bottom, what am I left with? Minutes. So, and that's what I want left on the bottom. So I know that all I have to do is now solve this out. I canceled out everything that I need to cancel out. And if I just multiply this out and then multiply that out, solve for it, I will get my answer. So here my top is going to be 1 times 5,280 times 1, which is 5,280 feet over 60 minutes. Okay, so 1 mile per hour is the same thing as 5,280 feet over 60 minutes. So this would be my answer. Now, I can simplify this if I want. This is a ratio, it's a rate. But if I want to change it to a unit rate, I can divide this by Let me use a different color. I can divide this by 60 and then divide this by 60. Now, 5,280 divided by 60 is going to give me, I'm going to cross out these zeros. Remember, you can cross out the zeros if you want. Okay, and then it's going to give me 8, okay, 40, 4, 8. So it's going to give me 88. Okay, so again, to multiply this, you're going to do 6 times 8, write out 48. My remainder is 4. I'm going to bring down this 8, and then 6 times 8 is 48. My answer is 88 beats per minute. And this would be my unit rate. Okay, so let's do a few more examples. The first example, right, in simplest form. So here, these are just ratios. They're just, you know, it's comparing this number to this number. Now, they look like fractions, but they can also be, you can also think of these numbers, the top number, the bottom number, as ratios. Okay, so it's like division. Now, to write this in simplest form, 12 over 36, I can look for a common factor. Now, the greatest common factor is 12, right? Because 12 goes into 12 here, and 12 goes into 36. Now, if you want, you can, if you don't see that 12 is the biggest factor, you can just look for any factor. Because 12 and 36 have a lot of common factors. So if you want, you can just divide the 2 first, and then just keep making the number smaller. You can divide this by 4, okay? Divide that by 3. So since I know that 12 is my biggest factor, I'm going to divide this by 12. And then divide this by 12. Whenever I'm going to simplify, then I need to divide both the top number and the bottom number by the same number, right? So the same factor. So this is 1 over 36 divided by 12 is 3. Now this is saying that the ratio of 12 to 36 is the same as 1 to 3. So then they are the same ratio. Okay, they're equivalent. They're the same. This next one, I know because this is this ends in a 0 and this ends in a 5, that they're both divisible by 5. So I'm going to take 30 divided by 5, 35 divided by 5. 30 divided by 5 is 6. And then 35 divided by 5 is 7. So this is simplest form. That means the ratio of 6 to 7 is the same as 30 to 35. Okay, same thing here. Let's divide this by, now again, if you just see any common factor, you can just keep dividing until you get simplest form. Or if you find the greatest factor, that would be the fastest way. But let's say that we wanted to just divide this by 2 because I just noticed that they're both even. That's not the greatest factor, but let's just do that first. So I'm going to divide both the top and the bottom by 2. And this is going to be 8 over 12. Well, this is still not simplest form because they're both even still. So 4 or maybe 2 if you just notice that they're both even numbers. But from these two, the greatest factor is 4. So let's just divide them by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2 over 3. Okay, and that would be simplest form. Now for this, let's see. This is not an odd or even number, so I know that 2 is not going to go into them. If I add these two together, 5 plus 1, that's 6. 6 is a multiple of 3. This bottom one, 1 plus 9, that is, 9 is a multiple of 3, so I know that 3 is can go into both of these. I'm going to divide this one by 3, divide this one by 3. Okay, so 51 divided by 3. If you don't know what that is, you can always just divide it. So 51 divided by 3, 1. Okay, subtract it, remember, bring this down. So that'll be 17 over, and then 18 divided by 3, so 3 times what equals 18? That is 6. Okay, so that would be simplest form. Okay. Next example. Tommy has 4 blue marbles, 3 green marbles, and 7 red marbles in a bag. Find the ratio of red to blue marbles. Okay, so 4 blue, 3 green, 7 red. We want to find the ratio of red to blue. So the ratio is going to be red to blue. How many red do we have? 7 to 4 blue. Okay. Make sure you have to write it as 7 to 4 and not 4 to 7. Okay, because they asked for red first before the blue, you have to write out the red first. So it's 7 to 4. You can say 7 to 4, or you can say 7 to 4 like that as a fraction. Okay. Next, out of 27 students in a classroom, 15 are boys. Find the ratio of boys to girls. Ratio is boys to girls. Now, they don't give us a number of girls. They just tell us that there's 15 boys. But I know that if there's 27 students total and 15 are boys, then the rest of the students have to be girls, right? So I have to subtract 27 students minus 15. I'm going to get 12. That means I know that 15 are boys and 12 are girls. So the ratio of boys to girls would be 15 to 12, or 15 over 12. Find the unit rate. Remember, unit rate is when you have a ratio and the bottom number, the denominator, has to be 1. So here, the ratio is 250 for every 2 dozen. Okay. I want to find how much it's going to be for 1 dozen, or how much per dozen. Okay. So think of it as per. Every time you see unit rate, you can think of per. So per number of, or per whatever the unit is on the bottom. So 250, how much per dozen? That means I need to turn this into a 1. I divide this by 2 then, to turn 2 divided by 2 into 1. Then I have to multiply the top by 2. So 250 divided by 2. Okay, remember to bring up the decimal. That's going to be 1. So 2, bring down the 5, 2, 4, 1, bring down the 0, 5. It's going to be $1.25 per dozen. Okay, there is my unit rate. A car goes 300 miles, MI means miles, on 10 gallons of gas. So, 300 miles on 10 gallons of gas. Find the unit rate. That means I want to turn this into 1. So it's going to be how many miles per gallon. So then again, divide this by 10. Divide the top number by 10. 300 divided by 10. Okay, every time you divide by a number with a 0 at the end of it, and they both have zeros at the end, you could just cross out one of the zeros. If I cross out the 0 and cross out the 0, then I'm going to be left with 30. So 30 miles per gallon. Okay, so this is the unit rate. A skydiver falls 240 feet in 5 seconds. So 240 feet every 5 seconds. So how many feet per second? Okay, so 1 second. Divided by 5, divided by 5. So 240, let's do it over here. 240 divided by 5. It's going to be 4, because that's going to be 20. 4, 0. That will be 8. So 48 feet per second. Okay, so here is my unit rate. And the fourth example, we're going to convert the units. Now this is going to be the most difficult part of this lesson, okay, but just make sure you're going to just try to cancel out the units so that you end up with the units that you want for your answer. Okay, so a car is moving at 8 miles per hour. So I'm going to write that as a fraction. 8 miles per hour. I want to convert this to feet on the top with what units on the bottom? Minutes. Now I know it's 10 minutes, but then I just want to focus on converting these units first. So miles per hour to feet per minute. Okay. So here, I'm going to start off here. So I'm going to write that over 1 hour. Now again, I'm going to multiply. I want to turn the miles into feet. So on the side, let's find out. 5,280 feet equals 1 mile. Okay, this equals this. So that means if I put this on top over that, okay, as a numerator and denominator, it's going to equal 1. And then, so why don't I just do that right now? So I'm going to do times, and then from the feet and the miles, which one do I want to go as my numerator? Well, I want my miles to go on the denominator because I want them to cross cancel out, right? So I'm going to put, from these two, I'm going to put this on the bottom. So I'm going to put 1 mile on the bottom, and then 5,280 feet as my numerator. That way my miles cancel out, right? And then hours I want to change to minutes, right? So 1 hour equals 60 minutes. Okay, write that out first so you can see it. It's a lot easier. And then from this and here, one's going to go on as my numerator, one's going to go on my denominator. Which one do I want to go on the top? Well, the hours, because here the hours is on the bottom, I want it to cancel out, so I have to put on the top. So it's going to go on the top, it's going to go on the bottom. So 1 hour over 60 minutes. Cross cancel that out, right? Now here, I want to now solve this out, because if I look at the top, what units are left on the top? Feet's left, right? Which is what I want. This is what I want my answer in. So I'm on the right track. On the bottom, what do I want left? Minutes, right? And that's where I'm at. Okay, so I'm good. Now I know I just have to multiply this out and solve these numbers out. Okay? So before we start multiplying this times this and get a big number, and then have to divide by a big number, let's try to cross-cancel some stuff out. Okay? Anytime you're multiplying numbers and you have numbers on top and you have numbers on the bottom, you can start cross-canceling things out if they have common factors. So first thing I see is I see a 0 here and I see a 0 here. So I can cross-cancel those out. Then so this is going to change to 6 and this is going to change to 528. Okay, so cross out that 0, cross out that 0. Then I can 8 and 6, I know that they have a common denominator of 2. So I can cross this out, divide this by 2, and I get 3. That changes to a 3. I'm going to change that because that common factor was a 2, so that changes to a 4. Okay, so that means I divided this by 2 and I divided this by 2. So this became 4, this became 3. Now here, does 528, is it divisible by 3? So if you add this, this becomes 5 plus 2 is 7, plus 8 is 15. Is 15 a multiple of 3? It is. So therefore I know that this is divisible by 3. Now if you're wondering what I just did, I use a divisibility rule, right? The divisibility rule of 3 is you add up all the digits. So you're going to do 5 plus 2 plus 8, which gives you 15. And you're going to see if that number is a multiple of 3. So does 3 go into that number? Well, 5 plus 2 plus 8 is 15, and 3 does go into 15. I know that 3 will go into this number. So 528 divided by 3. This is 1. This becomes 3. Subtract it. You get 2. Bring this 2 down. 3 goes into 22. 7 times. That's 21. 1. Bring down the 8. 3 times 6 is 18. So this goes away, and this became 176. And then, so now all I have to do to find my answer is just, since the bottom number is 1 times 1, and then these all canceled out, so then it's just 1 times 1. So that's just 1 minute, right? I just multiply all the numbers, and then I get this left. On my top, my numerators is just 4 times 176. So that is 24. 7 times 4 is 28. 20. So add 2. So this becomes feet. Okay. Now, this is in a unit rate, right? 704 feet per minute. I want to know how many feet it will move in 10 minutes. So, what does that mean? This is my unit rate. So this is converting the units, right? Now this would be the correct answer, but then it's asking me how many feet it'll move in 10 minutes, not per minute, right? So if they asked how many feet it will move per minute or in 1 minute, this would be my answer, 704 feet per minute for 1 minute. But since they're asking for 10 minutes, I need to change my denominator to a 10. So they're not asking for a unit rate. They want to know how many feet for 10 minutes. So I need to change this one to a 10. So in order to do that, I have to multiply by 10. So same thing here. I need to multiply by 10. Well, if I need to multiply this by 10, I just have to add a 0 at the end of it, right? So that's pretty easy. It just becomes 7,000, 4, add the 0, feet per 10 minutes. So my answer, how many feet? It's 7,040 feet. Okay. Now I know that problem seemed a little bit complicated, but all I had to do is convert the units miles per hour to feet per minute, which is what I did. Okay. Multiply your top numbers across, multiply your bottom numbers across. If you want, you didn't have to cross cancel all this stuff out. That's why it looks so complicated, because we ended up cross canceling numbers out. But if you want, forget about the cross canceling, just multiply all the numbers straight across, get this number. Multiply all the bottom numbers straight across and get this number, and then simplify if you want. You can do it that way. Okay, and then once we get this is per minute, right? One denominator is 1. This is our unit rate. But then because they're asking for 10 minutes, I need to change this denominator to 10. I'm multiplying by 10, so you multiply the top by 10, and you get 7,040 feet per 10 minutes. Okay? So let's try one more problem. The sprinklers use 2 gallons per minute. How many quarts will it use in 30 seconds? So again, we have to convert units. This is 2 gallons per minute. I want to convert this to quarts. This is quarts per seconds. Okay, so I'm going to put just 30 seconds here. So question mark, how many quarts per 30 seconds? So I'm going to start off with this again. 2 gallons per minute. Now, since I need to convert gallons to quarts, I know that 1 gallon is equal to 4 quarts. So remember, if this is equal to this, I can change this to a fraction, 4 quarts over 1 gallon. That's going to equal 1. 1 gallon over 4 quarts, that's also going to be the same. So I can multiply this by, what do I want to get rid of? I want to get rid of the gallons first, right? By using this. So then the gallon's going to go on the bottom. This one is going to go on the bottom. That way this will cancel like this. And then this one will go on the top. Like that. Okay, see how one goes on the bottom and one goes on the top? Or one goes on the top and one goes on the bottom? Okay, so just depends on what you have to cancel. Okay, and then I need to convert minutes to seconds. So the minutes to seconds is going to be 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds, right? I need to write the minute one on the top so that it'll cancel. So this is going to go on the top. This top, bottom. 1 minute over 60 seconds. Minutes will cancel. What units do I have left on the top? I have quarts, which is what I want, right? And I have seconds on the bottom, which is what I want. So now I just have to solve it out. If I want, I could cross cancel out this 2 and this 60. 2 goes into 2. This changes to a 1. 2 goes into 60. Cut it in half. That's 30. So you can cross cancel that out again, but then otherwise we can just write it out. 4 quarts over 30 seconds. Now, the reason why I decided to leave it, you could have cross-canceled it out, that's fine. Here, they ask for 30 seconds, right? They want to know how many quarts will it use in 30 seconds? So here, it'll be 4 quarts every 30 seconds. So I know that my answer will be 4. Okay, 4 quarts. Because 4 quarts per 30 seconds. That's my answer. Okay? Okay, well that's it for this lesson. Thank you for watching educator.com.